I was in college one day when a friend of mine came up to me and he was absolutely livid. He was mad that Maruti Suzuki discontinued the 1.1 litre 4-cylinder WagonR. So to you, Mr. Panchal Borra, this is the brand new 4-cylinder 1.2 litre WagonR. Now everything I just said should matter, for Maruti Suzuki states that as much as 24% of WagonR customers are indeed repeat buyers. So we're going to be taking a look at this brand new WagonR now to see if it has everything that it takes to cater to the practical-minded WagonR buyer. Now on the face of it, this new WagonR seems to have a very low set nose and a high roof. But in fact, this car is 25 millimeters lower than the previous car. However, built on Maruti Suzuki's 5th generation hardtech platform, this car is now wider, longer, and has a longer wheelbase as well over the previous model. And in fact, this car is about 45 kilos lighter than the previous model as well. So what do we have here? Well, these split headlamps are reminiscent of the 1st generation model, if you remember correctly. The grille here is quite flat, and so is the whole nose. It would appear almost that it's designed to meet sub 4 meter norms, but it's in fact well and short of those norms. Overall, the side profile of the design looks quite slab-sided and much the same as that of its predecessors. The new car now gets 14-inch rims, whereas the earlier car used to get 13-inch rims. Now the rear end of the new WagonR is very key car-like. It has a very abrupt ending and a tall profile. Now to ensure that it doesn't look too odd, Maruti is given these tall tail lights that run along the pillar of the car, the C-pillar, and the bumper itself is fairly tall in profile. So it's again not the most pleasing design to look at, it's more functional. So while the overall profile and silhouette definitely reminds you of the previous generation WagonRs, this new car's design is not the most pleasing to the eye. But then again, you have to remember that when the 1st generation model came out, people weren't too happy with its design either. But its practical aspects and everything else all considered, the WagonR went on to become a much loved car, and we'll have to see how this one fares as well in the long run. Now when it comes to the interiors of the WagonR, the plastic quality is actually fairly decent for a car of this segment, and that's a good thing because there's a lot of plastics in these cars. Now Maruti has done a great job of ensuring it doesn't get too boring in here, with a lot of different textures and colors going on everywhere. So in this new model, you get Maruti's new version of the Smart Play infotainment system. So this new system comes with a lot of accessories to it. There's a music app as well. Maruti has designed it itself. So you can sync that to your infotainment system, and you'll have a whole range of options to choose from over there. The system, as earlier, also comes compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The only aspect I really don't like about this cabin are these center air vents. No matter which way you adjust them, there's always a little bit of air at least coming out of them, and that's always coming to your face and your eyes. So that's not really a pleasant feeling, because the side air vents are totally controllable. You can change the direction of the airflow as well as shut the vent on its own. Now when it comes to the back seat of the WagonR, there's just so much space here, typical of this car. There's a very large glass house, so it feels very airy in here. So all of that is very good in terms of space and comfort. But when it comes to comfort, again, when you come to these seats, they're really flat. There's really no cushioning happening here to give additional support to your back or even in the lower section. So I would have really liked a more comfortable back seat. Having said that, there's a lot of leg room here and I can sit really comfortably. This seat bench could have been a little longer, but even otherwise there's a lot of under-thigh support. So it's a comfortable place to be. It's just that I wish the seat was more supportive on its own. But what I really don't like again here at the back are these headrests. They hit you somewhere at an off angle at the lower portion of your head. So they're not really comfortable. You can't rest your head there while going along. And I'm not so sure about whiplash protection either. This again applies to the front headrest as well, because this is not really a headrest, it's just an extension of the seat. So there also you have no support. So this new WagonR has a bigger boot than the previous model as well. We're just going to see how spacious it is. The length of the boot has been increased as well, so let's just try putting something in. So wow, this is truly a lot of space for a hatchback's boot. But what I don't like is that this floor is pretty low. So getting your luggage in and out may be more of an issue than ideally should have been. While Maruti Suzuki has reworked the styling of the new WagonR inside and out, it's only when you start driving that you truly understand the generational leap that this car has taken. So one of the biggest changes to this new WagonR has to be its new 1.2-litre petrol engine. Now this 4-cylinder 1.2-litre unit is borrowed straight from Maruti's other petrol cars such as the Swift, Desire, Baleno, Ignis, you name it. Now I keep saying that Maruti makes the best petrol engines in the business when it comes to small cars, and this 1.2 unit has surely added a new lease of life to the WagonR. This unit makes identical power as the Swift's, so it makes 80 bhp and 130 Newton meters of peak torque, and like in the other cars, the engine is mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox. I really like this unit. The clutch is very light and the throws are short. Now the engine itself, once you begin to rev it, it's only past 2000 RPM that power comes in nice and strong. And this engine likes to rev, although I have to say that it sounds quite different in the WagonR than it does in the Swift. Leaving that aside, since the state of tune is the same, you get a lot of nice power in the meat of the power band in the mid-range, and you can freely rev this engine towards its red line. So I have to say that the incorporation of the 1.2-litre petrol unit in the WagonR has definitely improved the driving dynamics of this car. There's more performance. This car is now ready and set for highway travels as well. So overall, I think this engine has done a whole lot of good for this car, and it's lended a new dimension to the WagonR, if I may say that. Now, in fact, in the city, this car is great to drive too, because the ratios are well spaced, and you know, when you slow down in traffic conditions, you don't really need to downshift all that suddenly. So you can leave the car in the same gear, drop speed, and then just feed in linear throttle inputs, and the car will pick up speed gradually, and it's perfect for your urban driving conditions within traffic and generally in the cities. Now, another big change that defines the new generation WagonR is the new suspension setup. Maruti has really upped its game when it comes to the suspension setup of its newer cars, especially the ones built on the hardtech platform. So this suspension setup is really supple. It dismisses road undulations so easily and with so much comfort and grace and poise that, you know, it's really not unsettling at all. I have to really give it to Maruti for making such a good setup. It's really perfect for Indian roads. It's not too soft, it's not too wallowy. At the same time, it's very confident over road undulations. And then when you move on to highways and expressways, this suspension setup gives you plenty of confidence. So while that's all the good stuff, I just realized that if you're at a higher speed and there's a crosswind that you come across, you're going to feel that a little bit in this car. And it's when you start going really fast and over sharp undulations, you'll tend to feel that the car gets a little twitchy, but it's not to an unstable extent. Like earlier, Maruti Suzuki is of course offering the new WagonR with the choice of a manual and AMT automatic gearbox options. So we got our hands on the AMT model as well, considering that they are becoming increasingly popular these days. So now that I'm behind the wheel of the AMT WagonR, it's very familiar territory because this is the same 5-speed AMT gearbox that you have in every other Maruti out there. Now over the years, Maruti has definitely fine-tuned this system to be less jerky in nature. But typical of AMTs, there are some jerks when you don't expect them to be there when you're modulating the throttle pedal. But as I've said many times before, the AMT system is a system that you need to get used to. So the moment you understand how the system operates and you lift off every time you want a gear change or an upshift rather, that's when this AMT system performs at its best. That's when you'll not have any jerky gear changes and you'll have more of a smoother drive. But then you have to remember again that these AMT transmission equipped cars are considerably more affordable than their conventional automatic counterparts. So the cost benefit and combined with the fuel efficiency benefit of an AMT over a traditional automatic gearbox means that this is something you can learn to live with. So all in all, I have to say that this new generation upgrade has truly taken the WagonR a couple of steps ahead. It is now a great city car, it's a great highway car, and there's lots of space. The interiors look nice as well now. Of course, like every car, it has a couple of drawbacks. For example, the seats definitely could have been better. But when you factor in all those pros and cons, and when you factor in the price of this car as well, it's a great package, well put together at an affordable price. And I'm sure that, like the previous car, this new WagonR will do very well for Maruti Suzuki on the sales charts as well.